We are live. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Black Present History in the Making, a series presented by the Black Foxes to highlight remarkable Black individuals who are making their own history in the present. As the Black Foxes, our sole mission is to create our own narrative. So instead of talking about the past for Black History Month, we're going to talk about and express gratitude for the present. I, William Lloyd, am here with Eric, and we're gonna just have this conversation. Um, Personally, I've known Eric for like not that long of a time, but I feel like we have a strong connection for such a short period of time that I've like
Yeah,
obviously I met you through Aisha
yeah,
from social media, and then I finally got to like see you and like everything that is like the awesomeness when we were like out in Tucson for a shoot.
yeah.
And
And
like,
then you came through Phoenix to the coffee
yeah.
shop. Yeah,
And that, I mean, I know not to harp on like, I know it's not around anymore, but I was just like, I felt so like privileged to see that because that was like amazing, man. Like, I mean, obviously COVID messed that up, but like, that was awesome,
yeah,
man. That was awesome. Like, and to this day, I always talk about that peanut butter sandwich that you made. Like, oh my God, that was great.
yeah.
Like,
Basic stuff that um, uh, I love peanut butter sandwiches when I'm camping out. So I was like, why
mhm.
don't I put it on my coffee shop? It's easy to do, and I put a twist on it where we were pressing it, so it was grilled peanut butter
Oh,
jelly sandwich, and some of them came with pickles, some of them came with it was just we have fun with them.
it was amazing. It was amazing. So, I want you to introduce yourself rather than me talking, because I mean, obviously you can do it better. But I mean, tell the people like what it is that you do and how you express yourself.
Yeah,
And
so about 13 years ago, I decided to travel by bicycle. I didn't know what that meant. I didn't see anyone. Sorry about that. You hear that back.
that's cool. Yeah, that's
Um,
cool.
so 13 years ago, I decided I want to travel by bicycle. I didn't know what that meant. I wasn't on social media, so I just had. I wanted to see more than I could see in my city by bicycle. So I started. I grew up in Miami, and I started biking from Miami to West Palm Beach, about 70, 75 miles. I would spend the night in West Palm Beach, and then the next day I would ride back home. And I did that several times, and I loved it. And I wanted to see more. I wanted to see how far I could go, right? And went from Miami to Key West. It's about 155 miles. Now, again, I didn't know anything about traveling by bicycle, so I just did it in one day. I went from
Wow,
Miami to Key West in
wow.
155 miles one day. I got to William. I got to West Palm Beach, and everything was booked. So my plan was, I just get a hotel, a small hotel in West Palm Beach, and then I just ride back, right, the following
Yeah.
day. I got to West Palm Beach, everything was booked. Everything was booked. It was like spring break.
Okay.
So
Okay.
I literally went to like the aquarium and I slept outside.
Yeah.
I was I
Hey.
was woken up. I was woken up by some cops at 5:30 in the morning. They were like,
Yeah.
"Can I see your license?" And I'm like, "Oh man," I said, "I don't want any trouble. I just
Yeah.
biked from Miami yesterday. I'm just biking back." And
Yeah.
somehow I was able to get away from that and then literally got on my bike and I went back. So that's how I started by bike. And
Yeah.
I never listen to music while I'm on the road. I like to listen to my thoughts. And as I'm heading back home, I was like, man, that was fun, but I want to see more. And at that time, I wanted to do something epic for myself, just for me. Again, I wasn't on social media or anything. I wanted to do something for myself.
Yeah.
And so I said, a thought came to my head. I wonder if I could go from Canada to Mexico by bike. It was just a thought. And I started entertaining that thought. I'm like, man, maybe I could do it. I don't know what it takes, but maybe I could do it, right? And I always tell people like once you put that vision that you could do it,
Yeah.
then that's half the battle. The
Hmm.
other is just getting prepared yourself physically, mentally. But if you could visualize that I could bike from Canada to Mexico, I'm good. And I had the thought, and I said, I think I could do it. Not
Yeah.
really knowing anything about bicycle traveling, but 8 months later, I flew up to Vancouver, Canada, and I rode the Pacific Coast Highway from Vancouver to Tijuana, man. And that's where it started 13 years ago. And every year since then, I've always taken the time for myself to do some type of route.
Mhm.
The following year, I went from Miami, literally outside my house in Miami Beach, all the way up to New York City.
Oh
And I
man.
did um, several trips around the country. And the one that I think um, I enjoyed the most, and I enjoyed it, all those trips were really fun,
Mhm.
but I love traveling through history and learning history and be able to see things that I've seen in books and
Yeah.
see things that I have never seen in books. And so 2014, I wanted to do the Lewis and Clark expedition. And but then I said, you know what? Maybe no, maybe not the Lewis and Clark. Maybe I should change it and do the Underground Railroad.
Right.
And um, and in 2014, I did the Underground Railroad by bicycle.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm glad you brought that up. Because for those who don't follow you, Bicycle Nomad, on Instagram, and do you have like on other social medias also?
Now, I just have bicycle underscore nomad,
There you
and it's interesting. 2 years ago, through social media, I started modeling and stuff. So I have a modeling.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah. Y'all have to look up this man. Always making us look good. That's all I'm gonna say. I'm gonna let y'all go to that later, but
yeah,
you always keep it together. I love it. But yeah,
I
back to
appreciate that.
the bicycle nomad though. I had a pleasure, and it was just awesome just to follow this last trip that you recently completed, in which you spoke on with the Underground Railroad. And I mean, some of those locations when you were just waking up and like sharing with us with just like the tent and like your gear and like having coffee and then, like that fog scene, it was just like
Yeah,
that made me like, okay, I need to get a bag. I need to get this. I need to go out there.
yeah,
Like that was inspiring, just to follow that journey. And it was just a portion of the trip that you shared, but it
yeah,
was
yeah. And
amazing.
then and yeah, 100%. I cannot show everything on social media,
Mhm.
and the pictures don't do it justice.
Mhm.
I always tell people the best way is to do it themselves, right? To go
Mhm.
out and experience what I experienced and see what I have seen and feel what I have felt. Because by looking at a picture, you can't really, you don't know what I'm going through mentally, right?
Mhm.
Um, because I'm traveling through a very, man, a spiritual trip that previous ancestors, previous freedom seekers traveled through, and you go through challenges, right? Like, because you're traveling 2,200 miles, and I'm doing about 75 miles on the average,
Oh, wow.
um,
Okay.
and so I always tell people that it's more mental than physical, because and it is very physical, but
Mhm.
mental, because every day you got to get up and do the 80 miles, the 75, the
Mhm.
65 miles to get going. But um, and then you go in through location where you're like, wow, people had to go through there, because I'm on the road, but some people had to
Yeah.
travel through like the swamp, and I
Yeah.
would see swamp and rivers and stuff like that. And
Yeah.
I followed at an old spiritual song, which actually was a GPS. Um, um, called Follow the Drinking Gourd. And Follow the
Mhm.
Drinking Gourd was a song that they would sing in plantations, but no one really knew what it was except people that were ready to escape and into
Yeah.
freedom, because it was a GPS to travel to Canada. So it says you follow Tennessee River to the Ohio River, and then you follow
Mhm.
the North Star. So I constantly were staying on the banks of the river, of the Tennessee
Okay.
River, the Ohio River, and sometimes you get eaten by mosquitoes, and you start thinking, wow, man, this is what people had to go through. So
Yeah.
again, those kind
Yeah.
of experiences that you cannot share by pictures or, but yeah, That's probably a trip that I could do the rest of my life because there's so much history that I still
Mhm.
got to go back and learn more about it. And so
Yeah.
many little locations that I wasn't able to go because I'm on a bike, and there's histories all over the place. So I've done it
Yeah.
2 times, and I'm sure that I will go back and do more. But currently working on other projects that also history. So
Mhm. How do you like? For me, as someone who like definitely is inspired and definitely is like, okay, I want to connect, like you said, like that. There's a lot of history with like our ancestors
yeah,
having to go through these routes, and like you can, I can only imagine like seeing where you say like even though it's a road, like you're saying you're still seeing swamps that they still had to go through. Like, how do you like prepare yourself for that? Like, especially like because you're saying like I can only speak for me personally. 22 days, I'm saying 85 miles, that's a lot. Like that's like nothing small to like
yeah,
talk about. I mean, and
yeah.
you like throw it in there, like sprinkle in there very nicely, but like I think the most I've ever done was like a week, and maybe like we had like 280 days, 80-mile
Yeah.
days. But I'm just like, man, like back to back to back, and like, I mean, you continuously bust these out. It's just like it's really incredible because it's like the history involved with it, this the biking aspect that's involved with it. And I mean, I just think it's like as much as it's an inspiration, it's like I need to like just say I'm gonna do it at this day and like go
Oh yeah,
after it.
you
Like
go
how'd
and you
you
go.
like
Yeah, yeah, yeah. The hardest part is making that first pedal,
yeah.
but I always tell people, right? Like I always tell people that you have to take the time for yourself, regardless what's going on around the world or around your
Yeah.
house or in your community or your work or whatever. There's some time that you have to take the time for yourself to go within. And that's what I do on this trip. I'm not looking for peace, but peace finds me along the way. And and I always tell people like there's no way I'm able to function um like constantly like noise and responsibilities and noise in my head with work and family and you know what I mean. So at some point
Yeah.
you gotta take, and it doesn't have to be 30 days. It could just be 1 day or 2 days. And I encourage people to just do how I started. It's just you go to your next city or your next town and find a cabin and find a place to camp out, and then you come back and you'll see what it does to you, man. Like it,
Yeah.
it, it clears your head that you're like, oh, okay, now, because there's no way that you can't listen to yourself unless you're on a quiet setting, right?
Mhm.
And when I'm biking and I have no one to talk to and just me, there's a lot of healing that goes that happens. You see what I'm
Yeah.
saying?
Yeah.
So I like that. I like that, and I think I'll do it for the rest of my life. I think that if I'm 80 years old, I'm still gonna travel by bicycle. Maybe not as long as I'm doing now, but even if it's 2 days or 3 days, and
Yeah.
even if it's a day, I know that I will continue traveling by bicycle. But yeah, I encourage people to go out.
Yeah, no, definitely. I mean, I love what you said about like that healing process and like taking the time. I think is the most important for yourself. I mean, obviously, it can't be said enough how beneficial that is for us. But I love how you put it, like
Oh
having that
yeah,
time for yourself.
and one thing that I didn't mention is that once you heal or once you figure things out in your head, when you come back, man, you come back a better man. You come back a better man for for your husband, for your wife, for your
Mhm.
community, for your
Mhm.
father, for your brothers, and like that's what it's all about, right? It's almost like when we're in
Mhm.
the plane and they say like, put the
Yeah,
mask on you first, and
yeah.
then your child, or
You can
then
help
somebody
somebody
else.
else. Yeah,
Yeah, because
yeah,
so that's what I'm doing. I'm putting my mask on and my oxygen on first before I could do it, and I come back and I
yeah,
think that I told my wife, I say I'm going to do this trip, and I thought we just got married in February, and I thought she was going to say no,
yeah.
that's 33 days, but she understood
Yeah,
what it does to me. You know what I mean? I come
yeah,
back here and she benefits and I benefit from a healthy relationship, you know?
Yeah. No,
Yeah.
that's beautiful. Well said. Like definitely something that I think we can all take from and like start to implement in our own lives. Like you said, like, maybe not 22 days, but I mean,
Yeah.
1, 2 days at a time. I mean, that's something that I feel like those small steps will lead on to it. Cause like I mean, for you, I mean, the way you tell it's like once you get that, like that joy and you see how much it does for me, it's like, all right, I
Yeah.
want more of it.
You want more. Yeah. You want more. And and now I have a lot of responsibilities and things like that. But I make sure that, like, for every birthday for the past
Mhm.
12 years, I go out by myself. I don't even celebrate
Yeah.
with people. I celebrate my birthday is my new year.
Yeah.
So the way I celebrate is I just find a trip. Sometimes it's 5 days, 7 days. Sometimes it's one day. Last year, I just went up 45 miles north and found a nice place to camp. And then the next day I came
Wow.
back and then I celebrated with my wife. And the year before that, I went to Puerto Rico and I went around the island of Puerto Rico by bike. And it's just it's a
I
way
remember that
it's a
on
good
Instagram.
way to it's yeah, it's such an
Yeah.
awesome trip, man. Puerto Rico is
Yeah.
such an awesome place to travel because um, I'm not just pushing the miles, right? For me, it's
Mhm.
like it's about engaging with people, engaging with nature, and
Yeah.
sometimes I'm like, man, I'm tired, and I'll take a nap on the beach for like
Yeah.
15, 20 minutes. Wake up, go inside the beach, go outside, and then continue my bike
Yeah.
ride. You know, so yeah, it's about yeah, it's about taking time
That's
for
just
myself.
beautiful. That's just beautiful. Um, so speaking of like that small steps in the like maybe you have some other further, I would say, advice, like someone like me, if I wanted to take like a 1, 2 day trip, like I have nothing.
Yeah,
I have the bike, that's it. Like
yeah,
gear paralysis is real. Like
yeah.
what you actually need, what is actually important, and like just get out there to do it. Like
Well, the good thing is like it doesn't have to be perfect. Like your
yeah,
first trips, and especially if you're doing 1 or 2 day trips, you don't need
yeah,
a lot of things, right? So on a 1 day, 2 day trips, I might take an extra jersey. So when I get to where I'm going, I'll wash whatever I have to wash. I don't want to carry a lot of stuff. So you don't need
yeah,
a lot of bags. You might just need
yeah,
either one of those frame bags or one
yeah,
of those like handlebar bags, right? So yeah, you don't need much, and it doesn't have to. And nowadays, you could find uh, inexpensive bags where you could
yeah,
either secondhand bags or a lot of companies are selling bags that are not that expensive to get
mhm,
into the lifestyle. There's no need to get everything perfect. You're just
yeah,
testing the
yeah,
water, right? So you're just testing the water. And you want to see if you like it. I could guarantee that you will. So. Um, but yeah, you just get, and again, because you don't need a lot of things, you just need toothbrush, toothpaste, maybe something to eat, and sometimes depending on where you're going, maybe not even take anything to eat because you could eat along the way, right?
yeah,
So
yeah,
my last trip, I was just camping north of Malibu, and I didn't take anything to eat. I just took my coffee and things like that. My camp. I like doing coffee outside.
yeah,
So, but yeah, just basic front bag and maybe um, uh, a frame bag. That's all you need, and
yeah,
eventually you build up your gear. But if you start looking for like the perfect gear and all that stuff, you
yeah,
will never
yeah,
go. You know what I mean? The main thing
mhm,
for me is like just go
yeah,
and then figure things out, and then you're like, oh, you know what? Maybe next time I don't need this or I need that, and then you'll
mhm,
figure it out on your own, right? Like, but if you wait till like my first trip, I just had the idea and I just went
yeah.
because if I would have waited, I probably would have. Years just passed by, and then
Just
you never
another
go.
year
And then
comes, you're still saying it.
exactly,
Yeah, yeah,
exactly.
yeah.
And I think it's more about the experience than
Mhm,
anything else. You know what I mean? So the
mhm.
experience is the most important thing. So just grabbing a couple of bags and then just go, man.
Yeah, no, definitely. I will definitely start plotting some stuff on the mat to get this going. We've actually like Aisha and I, we've actually been like trying to get like our feet wet into it. So like
Hmm.
there's definitely like some maybe like maybe we go here to Alabama or like, oh, there's this campground out here or this cabin.
Yeah,
Cause that's my thing too. Like,
I
I'm
love.
really like, I love the idea of like riding to a cabin, hanging out, and then
Yeah,
leaving. Like that's what
yeah.
I think I want for me.
That's it. That's it. I
Yeah.
love that. I love spending um, time in cabins. I like the smell of the wood,
Yeah.
but yeah, like that's another thing. If you find a cabin, um, just right up to the cabin. So now you don't need the sleeping bag and the tents and all that
Mhm.
stuff, right? And maybe carry a sleeping bag, but you don't need a tent because you sleep in
Yeah.
there.
Yeah.
And I love staying at cabins, man. Like, yeah, that's my
Yeah.
thing too.
Yeah. I'm like, we have one in like North Georgia. It's like less than 100 miles one way. So it's like, I
Yeah,
can totally do this.
for
And we
sure.
actually stayed at one for my birthday last year, but we drove up there and like made it
Uh-huh.
like a whole like week thing. So now
Yeah.
I'm like, all right, maybe
Yeah,
we could ride there.
Georgia and Alabama has some really good, nice places to camp out or
Yeah.
cabins and stuff like that where you could ride
Yeah.
and it's all about again the experience, right? Like so this year I decided that I want to do more 1 day and 2 day bike
Mm,
trips. I'm not able to do as many 30 days and 60
yeah.
days and all that stuff. But I love traveling by bike. So there's ways where you could just take the train, right? Like um, I'm planning one where I take the train down to San Diego and then I just ride back up. And it's about
Oh,
120 miles, 115 miles. So I'll do it in 2 days and I'll just camp
yeah.
out somewhere in the middle. And then by the time I get home,
Yeah.
it'll take me 2 days. So yeah, you sometimes you use train and Amtrak
Mhm.
nowadays. You're able to put your bike in there. And you don't. Back in the days, you
Oh,
had
that's
to
awesome.
take it out and put it in the box and all that. But
Yeah.
now you could just
You
wheel it
just
right
roll it
in.
in. Wow. Okay.
So yeah,
That's what's
so
up.
those things are pretty cool because now you could travel anywhere.
Yeah.
Like if you live in New York, you could go to Philadelphia, or you could go up to Boston and ride down
Hmm.
from Boston. That kind of stuff that you could do all over the country, right? So
Yeah.
yeah, that's pretty cool stuff.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. I
And more
didn't that
accessible.
opens up a lot more accessibility to folks. I didn't know anything about the Amtrak thing. Like, I mean,
Yeah.
it's been so long since I've been on the train, so I'm like, what? They let you do this?
Yeah, and the train rides are really cool because you get to think about your trip either before
Yeah,
or after your trip. So I
yeah,
actually prefer sometimes after my tours to take the
hmm,
train back home instead of flying because on a trip that you travel for like let's say 30 days on the Underground Railroad, and if I fly home, um, immediately you go into the grind, right? So
yeah,
you're not able to
yeah,
digest all the information and all the learnings that you had. So
hmm,
sometimes I take the train back, and sometimes it takes 2 to 3 days to get back home. But it's just cool. I have my bike right there. I got a
yeah,
cabin where I'm sleeping, and I
yeah.
get back home. But
That's awesome.
another thing, yeah, bro, yeah, yeah.
It's like
Another
another
thing that
part of the trip, like
it's another part of the
to
trip because
decompress.
exactly. Not yeah, decompress and digest because
Mm,
just like how we digest food, we also
yeah,
digest information that
yeah,
we gain along. And again, if you fly right after that trip,
hmm,
you fly home. Now you got to go to work. Now you got this. You got you got to pay bills.
yeah,
You got so much stuff that
yeah,
you're like you forget everything about your trip. You know what I mean? And you
yeah.
you weren't able to digest, right?
Mhm.
Yeah. So, but another thing that I like to uh, talk to people about when they get into traveling by bike is there's a lot of rails to trails. Um,
Yeah, that's right.
um, Old railroads that are converted into trails now, and
Right.
they're pretty cool because a lot of them have places to camp out. A lot of them have bed and breakfast. A lot of them have coffee shops and things like that. Where just to get your feet wet, you don't have to like go all the way in, right? So and
Yeah.
I love traveling rails to trails because you're able to let your guards down a little bit. You don't. It's car free, so there's no cars on the trails.
Okay.
Um, and like There's so many. There's two that I really, it's three, maybe more, that I really
Mm.
like. I just travel from, when I was on the Underground Railroad, I went from Cincinnati up to Cleveland. It's 365 miles, and about 98% of the time, I was
Yeah,
on a rails to trails car free.
that's awesome. Yeah. So you
So
don't
if
have to
you go
worry
with
about
your
that.
leg,
Yeah.
yeah,
Mm.
if you go with your partner, with your lady,
Yeah.
with your boyfriend, now you're able to have communication, travel,
Yeah.
talk, and all that stuff. Not worrying about, well, be careful with that car, be careful with that.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? And that's 300. And another trip that I like is Pittsburgh to DC. That's about 365 miles, and goes from Pittsburgh, or you could start in DC. I like going from
Yeah.
Pittsburgh to DC. That's about 325, 335 miles, and it goes into Pennsylvania, a little part of West Virginia, and then into Maryland and to DC, and that's car free. And the
Yeah.
cool thing about it also is that I see a lot of your Instagram. You like to climb and stuff like that, right?
Uh,
So, um, the cool thing about Rails to Trail is that there's not big climbing because it
yeah.
used to be a railroad track. So
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
elevation is only 2%.
Yeah.
So yeah,
It's accessible to
accessible.
more
Yeah,
skill
yeah,
levels. That's awesome. Yeah.
correct. Yeah, yeah,
Definitely have to keep that in mind.
yeah.
I know there is one like rail to trail system pretty close to us. Like it goes all the way into Alabama, I believe, too.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
I'm
yeah, it
checking
does.
that.
Yeah, I know which one you're talking about.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's awesome, man. That's awesome. Um, you didn't bring it up when you was talking about the gear, but I want to bring it up just because I think it's like just wildly amazing. Can we talk about the bike, man? That
Mm,
the collaboration, like that was
man,
just beautiful. Like in, I mean, I think I remember from the first time you mentioned it to like the final product, it was just like, wow, this guy's
yeah,
doing it. Like he's
yeah,
doing it.
yeah,
Like
yeah,
that was
yeah,
huge.
yeah. No, you know, how can I start this? One of the missions for Bicycle Nomad was always to inspire people to travel by bicycle,
Mm,
to make it more accessible, right? Like I remember one time I built a bike, a titanium bike. I think that cost me like $5,000. Um, and I'm like, I cannot inspire somebody to travel by bicycle if I'm
mhm,
showing up with a $5,000
mhm,
bike. Believe me, probably one of the most fun bikes that I ever traveled with. But my job and my mission um, is to make it more accessible, right?
mhm,
So
mhm.
that's why I was talking about Amtrak. I'm talking about Rails to Trails. I'm talking about getting like any bags just to get the experience. And about 3 or 4 years ago, I had the vision. I was like, man, how cool would it be if I could have like a collaboration with a bike company
Mhm.
and make a limited amount of bikes for and name it Bicycle Nomad, right? So
Yeah.
um, had that 4 years ago, and it finally manifested about a year and a half ago. And I work with State Bicycle, who's
Mhm.
based in Arizona. And
Oh
State
wow, I
Bicycle,
didn't know that.
yeah, yeah, State
That's cool.
Bicycle is
Yeah.
actually based in Tempe, Tempe.
Okay. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So they actually reached out to me, and it was so cool because I was at the coffee shop. I remember talking to the owner, and the owner called me from actually the manufacturer, and they were like, "Hey, we have an idea, and we want to make a gravel slash exploration bike, and we would love
Yeah.
to work with you on this collaboration." I'm like, "Wow, yes."
Yeah.
And yeah, yeah, I mean, like, and then they told me that it was going to be a bike that will be priced at MSRP under $1,000,
That's
fully
awesome.
built. And
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, it aligns to my mission, which is make it more accessible, right? To
Yeah.
me, it's like I really want um, to get more people to not just use the bicycle, but to go beyond what they think it
Mhm.
was possible, right? To discover their world and to travel by bicycle because I mean, um, yeah, it's a beautiful thing, and not only in the physical, but
Mhm.
being able to engage with people and the people that you meet, man. Like, I've traveled all over the country, and I could tell you that never had anything negative happen to me, and people are being very open and caring and like
Mhm.
um, Yeah, and I don't remember every single turn
Yeah.
on my trips, but I remember every single people or every single person that I have met on my trip. You know, and some of them I have communication with them on a weekly, monthly basis.
Yeah. Yeah.
Hmm.
I mean, I hear you completely when it comes to that. Like this whole bike life and like exploring the world by bike. I mean, that's how we were introduced, you know, and like how a lot of my like really close individuals now, like it's all because of the bike. So like I definitely believe like the impact of just going out doing it, and like I might not know where I'm riding all the time, but like you said, like you know
And
the
and
people. And
100%, and I love what you guys are doing with Black Foxes because it's a thing that we need, right? Because when I started, I told you I didn't know what I was
yeah,
doing. I didn't even know what was possible, what was not,
yeah,
because I didn't see anyone that looked like me doing it.
yeah,
And that has been my mission. And I stayed true to my mission, and it has always been to have more people of color traveling by bicycle, you know, and to
yes,
show through
yeah,
pictures and through storytelling what's possible, you know.
hmm
And one of the things I love about traveling by bicycle, and I think it's within us, it's within our DNA to be explorers, to use our primal instinct. Because when I'm out there, man, this is the first. I got to tell you something. For 13 years, I never traveled with a GPS. I've always
wow,
traveled
okay,
just with a map. When I first started traveling by bike, I wanted to travel the way ancient travelers did it, by maps.
uh-huh.
And only last year, when I did the Underground Railroad, the second time, I did it with a GPS.
Yeah,
Um, and I love it. It's what I love about it is that I don't have a watch, but I know what time it is. I don't know exactly
hmm
what time it is, but I know that
yeah,
by the way the sun is moving, I have
yeah,
3 more hours of riding by bike. You know,
wow,
I could smell, and I said, oh my God, there's a rain coming. So,
yeah,
and that's without using Google or anything, because we
yeah,
have that in within us to, and every time I go out, I sharpen that skill that we have,
yeah,
you know,
yeah,
and that some people never use because they are in the city and
hmm
using phones and stuff like that. On the other side of that, I use that digital map, and I'm like, oh, I don't know if I could ever go back to just using a map because that was so easy. I didn't get lost or nothing.
yeah. I mean, it's got its pros and cons, but I like
Yeah,
the idea of like you said, honing that skill, man. That's it's
yeah,
definitely something that you know it's overlooked, but it's wonderful to know that like it's something that you can do. You know, like you don't even need the GPS. Like that might be a hurdle for someone. You know, like oh, I don't
correct.
have this unit, and you're like you just use a map, and that's it. And
Yeah, I
that's
think
all you need.
yeah, and I think that having both, and I actually have both, and
Mhm.
sometimes there's only one time that it happened, or maybe two times, where my GPS, I didn't charge it because I didn't have a place to charge it, so I had to depend on mapping, you know.
Yeah,
And I think it's good to have both, you know, when you
yeah.
out exploring, just to cover yourself for safety too, you know.
hmm hmm No, I hear you, man. That's wonderful. That's awesome.
Yeah,
Um,
that bike collaboration. Going back to that bike, we only made 100 bikes, and within 3 weeks, all of them were sold out. You know,
yeah,
so
yeah.
they reached out and they want to do another run. So we're still working on that. Maybe do another run
Ooh,
this year. So
is that a this is a heads up? Okay, let me know. I mean, for those, I don't know if you still have some photos on your Instagram for people to check out. I mean, it was beautiful. It's like it seemed like it was like a still like touring like gravel spec bike.
yeah,
You know, you
it's a
had
bike
mounts.
that I was able
Yeah.
to do many things because that particular route of the Underground Railroad has both. It has
hmm
road and gravel.
hmm
So it was a bike that was able to handle both, and a bike that again that it was priced under $1,000, and
Yeah.
I didn't have any mechanical with this bike. Only one flat tire in 2,200 miles, you know,
Yeah.
and the flat tire has
That's a
nothing to
good
do with
yeah
the bike, you know. It was just
yeah.
the tire.
That's an awesome turn of events, man. That really
Yeah.
worked out. I mean, and it was lovely looking too, man. So, I'd have to say I don't want to hold you too much of your time, but I personally like enjoy talking with you. Like we talk all the time, so it's
Yeah.
always a pleasure when I can like get you here, and like it's a pleasure just to have this going. But I want to thank you on the behalf of the Black Foxes for spending your time and sharing your stories with us today. Is there any way, or is there a better way where we can support you or the people who are listening to this to support you in your work and what you're doing?
Yeah, so I started Bicycle Nomad 6 years ago, and we sell like T-shirts, and this is our logo. We have, if you go to iambicyclenomad.com, we have
Mhm.
T-shirts, socks, water bottles. So we have a bunch of merchandise,
Mhm.
and that I think that's the best way to support me right now through our website, and on
Definitely.
Instagram I'm under bicycle_nomad. But
All
one
right.
of the things that I want to do is from the last trip is taking people on tours. So I'll be doing. I actually took someone on that trip as a tour guide,
The
and we
Underground
went from
Railroad.
yeah, yeah,
Okay.
and I wasn't able to show him just for safety of his
Yeah.
family. He didn't want to show that he was outside um, the comfort of his home for the safety of
Right.
his family. He
Yeah.
wasn't shown on my videos or pictures. Now that we're back, I'll probably release some of the pictures that I took from him.
Yeah.
But I will be doing not 30-day trips anymore, but I will be
Mhm.
doing short trips, either 3 days, 5 days, 7 days along the Underground Railroad.
Okay.
So I will be able to take people through some of the um, sites of the Underground Railroad, and
Yeah.
usually it's from Louisville, Kentucky, up to Cincinnati or just north of Cincinnati. There's a lot of
Wow.
history,
Yeah.
and I made a lot of network with some of the sites and buildings of the Underground Railroad along that route. So I will be showing that. With COVID, it's a little harder. So
Yeah. Yeah.
once things get better and we're able to travel like that. But yeah, I think that's the way to support me, for me to continue the work that I'm doing.
Uh, Definitely. Thank you. Thank you again. Side note, I mean, we might have to get some Black Foxes Underground Railroad uh, tour guy going on
For
because
sure. For sure.
I want to go to that place to plug your Instagram again. That place that you stayed at on the Underground Railroad. It was that old house that you took some photos of. I definitely
Yeah.
want. I want to be there. Like
Yeah.
that's that's
Yeah.
just a little teaser for everyone. Go look at
Yeah.
the man's Instagram. He has plenty of
Yeah.
photos, but
Yeah.
it's a pleasure.
Yeah. And if you're ever back here in the West Coast, please reach out, and love
Yeah.
to go out on a bike ride with you. And
Yes.
maybe we could do
Yes,
an
please.
overnight camping over here. There's some
Oh
beautiful
yes.
places. There's a couple of places where we could actually stay on the beach. So,
Oh,
um,
that's say no more. That's
yeah.
all. That's all I do there. I'm there.
Okay. Okay.
All right.
All right, my brother.
Thank you, man. Thank you.
Yeah.
Have a
Thank
good
you.
one.
Be well. Be safe. Say a hi to Aisha.
Will